The ship was falling apart. Lily Chen could feel it in her bones as the walls shook and the lights turned red. She was 7 years old, and she did not understand what was happening. One moment she was eating dinner with her parents in the passenger hall. The next moment, alarms were screaming and people were running. Her mother grabbed her hand so tight it hurt. Her father was shouting something about escape pods. They ran through the long white hallways of the Meridian's Hope, pushing past other passengers who were crying and praying. The floor tilted under their feet. Somewhere behind them, metal screamed as the ship tore itself apart. They reached the escape pod section. Hundreds of people were fighting to get inside the small round pods. Lily's father lifted her up and pushed her into one of them. She reached for her mother's hand, but the crowd pushed between them. "Mommy," Lily screamed. "We'll find you, baby." Her mother shouted back, "We'll find you. Stay in the pod. Stay safe." The door closed. Lily pressed her small hands against the window, watching her parents disappear as more people flooded the hallway. Then the pod launched, and she was thrown back into the soft seat as the small vessel shot away from the dying ship through the tiny window. Lily watched the Meridian's Hope break into pieces. Fire bloomed in the darkness of space. Other escape pods flew in all directions like seeds scattered by the wind. Then her pod hit the atmosphere of the planet below, and everything became orange and hot and loud. She closed her eyes and held the small stuffed rabbit her grandmother had given her. She did not cry. She was too scared to cry. The pod crashed through trees and hit the ground hard. Lily's head struck the seat, and everything went black. When she woke up, it was dark outside the small window. Strange sounds filled the air, clicking and humming and deep growls that seemed to come from everywhere. The emergency lights inside the pod gave off a weak blue glow. A small screen on the wall showed words she could not fully read, but she recognized the picture of food. She found the emergency supplies under her seat. There were water packets and food bars and a small flashlight. There was also a silver blanket that crinkled when she touched it. She wrapped it around herself and ate one of the food bars. It tasted like cardboard, but she was hungry. Outside, something big walked past the pod. She could hear its heavy footsteps and its breathing. It sniffed at the pod's door. Lily held her breath and squeezed her rabbit tight. After a long moment, the creature walked away. She did not sleep that night. The first day was the hardest. Lily knew she should stay in the pod. Her mother had told her to stay safe, but the pod was hot during the day, and she needed to find water. The emergency supplies would not last forever. She opened the door just a little and looked outside. The forest was like nothing she had ever seen. The trees were taller than any building on Earth. They glowed with soft blue and green light, even in the daytime. Strange flowers opened and closed as she watched. The air smelled sweet and wet. She stepped outside and immediately stepped back in. A creature with too many legs was crawling up a nearby tree. It was bigger than her father's car. She waited until it was gone, then tried again. She found a small stream not far from the pod. The water looked clean, but she remembered her mother's lessons about alien planets. She used the small testing strip from the emergency kit. The strip turned green. Safe to drink. For 3 days, Lily survived this way. She would leave the pod in the morning to get water and look for anything that might be food. She learned which creatures were dangerous and which ones ignored her. She learned to move quietly, the way she had seen animals move in nature videos back home. But she was getting weaker. The food bars were almost gone. And on the third night, something terrible happened. A pack of creatures found her pod. They were the size of wolves, but they had no fur. Their skin was gray and wet, and their mouths were filled with teeth that curved backward. They circled the pod, scratching at the metal, trying to find a way inside. Lily screamed. She could not help it. She screamed and screamed as the creatures threw themselves against the pod's walls. The metal bent inward. They were going to get in. Then suddenly, they stopped. Lily heard new sounds outside. Sharp cries and the thud of something hitting flesh. The wolf creatures made high-pitched sounds of pain. Then there was silence. Lily stayed frozen in her seat, too scared to move. She stayed that way until morning came. When the sun rose, She finally looked out the window. The wolf creatures were gone. Dark blood stained the ground around the pod. And standing in a circle around her small vessel were beings she had never seen before. They were small, shorter than her mother. They stood on 2 legs, but they had 4 arms each. Soft gray fur covered their bodies. Their faces had large dark eyes that seemed to glow in the morning light. They wore simple clothes made from plants and carried spears made from bone. Lily should have been afraid. But there was something about the way they looked at her. They were not looking at her like the wolf creatures had, like she was food. They were looking at her with something else. Something soft. One of them stepped forward. It was a female, older than the others. Lily could tell by the white fur around her face and the way the others moved aside for her. The female made a soft clicking sound and tilted her head. Lily opened the pod door. The beings did not attack. They did not run away. The old female simply reached out one of her small hands. Her fingers were long and gentle. Lily took her hand. The female made a sound that might have been a word. Lily did not understand it, but she understood what it meant. It meant, "Come with us." It meant you were safe now. Lily let the strange beings lead her away from the broken pod. She did not know their names or their language. She did not know that they were called the Varith, or that the Galactic Council considered them primitive and unimportant. She did not know that meeting her would change the future of their entire species. All she knew was that she was not alone anymore. The old female's name, Lily would later learn, was Kethra, and in that moment, as the small gray woman led a human child through the glowing forest, the universe began to change. Neither of them knew it yet, but they would. Soon, everyone would. The Varith village was built in the trees. Lily had never seen anything like it. Bridges made from woven vines connected platforms that wrapped around the massive trunks. Small houses hung from branches like fruit. Everything glowed with the soft light of the bioluminescent plants that grew. Everywhere on this world, Kethra carried Lily up into the trees. The old female was small, but she was strong. Her forearms held Lily steady as they climbed higher and higher. Below them, other Varith followed, watching the strange creature their elder had brought home. When they reached the main platform, the whole village was waiting. There were maybe 200 Varoth living there. Adults and children and elders, all gathered to see the strange being with the flat face and the furless skin. A male Varith stepped forward. He was tall for his kind and wore a necklace made of teeth. He spoke to Kethra in rapid clicks and whistles. Even without understanding the words, Lily could tell he was angry. He pointed at her several times. He pointed at the forest below. Kethra spoke back. Her voice was calm but firm. She placed one hand on Lily's shoulder and did not move it. The male argued more, but Kethra simply shook her head. Finally, the male made a sound of frustration and walked away. Kethra looked down at Lily and made a soft clicking sound that might have been a laugh. She led the child to a small house near her own and gestured inside. The house was simple. A soft bed made from dried plants. A small window that looked out at the glowing forest. A bowl of water and some kind of fruit. Lily looked at Kethra, and the old female nodded. This was for her. Lily began to cry. She could not help it. She was tired and scared, and she missed her parents. But she also felt something else. She felt grateful. These creatures did not know her. They did not owe her anything. But they had saved her and given her a home. Kethra sat beside her and made soft sounds. She did not understand Lily's tears, but she understood pain. She held the small human until the crying stopped. The days turned into weeks. Lily began to learn the ways of the Varoth. They taught her which fruits were safe to eat. The round blue ones were sweet. The long yellow ones would make her sick. The red ones with spots were deadly. She learned to check by watching what the Varith children ate. The children were curious about her. At first they kept their distance, watching her with their big dark eyes. But children are the same everywhere. It did not take long before they were playing together. Lily taught them games from Earth. She showed them how to play hide and seek. She taught them clapping games and songs, even though they could not understand the words. The Vareth children taught her how to climb the trees and how to call to each other with clicks and whistles. Kethra taught her the most important lessons. She showed Lily how to move through the forest without making sound. She taught her which paths were safe and which ones belonged to the predators. She showed her how to read the weather by watching the plants. Slowly, Lily began to understand the Vareth language. It was not like any language she had learned before. It used sounds that human throats could not make perfectly. But she learned enough to say simple things. "Thank you, I am hungry. Where are you going?" The first time she spoke a complete sentence in their language, the whole village celebrated. They made sweet drinks from fermented fruit and danced around a fire. Kethra looked at Lily with pride in her dark eyes. But the forest was still dangerous. Lily learned this lesson the hard way. One night, the wolf creatures returned. There were more of them this time. 20 or 30, drawn by the smell of the human who should not be there. They surrounded the village tree and began to climb. The Vareth warriors grabbed their spears. There were only 12 of them, and the wolf creatures were fast and hungry. Kethra pushed Lily into a small hiding spot and stood in front of it with a knife, made from sharpened bone. The battle was terrible. Lily could hear the screams and the sounds of fighting. She wanted to run, but there was nowhere to go. She could only sit in the darkness and wait. When the sun rose, the wolf creatures were gone. Lily came out of her hiding spot and saw the village covered in blood. Vareth, blood, and creature blood mixed together on the wooden platforms. 2 Vareth warriors had died. A male named Takvin and a young female named Sari. They had fought to the last breath to protect the village. To protect her, Lily stood at their funeral. The Vareth wrapped the bodies in leaves and lowered them to the forest floor, where the plants would take them back into the earth. Kethra sang a song that was older than memory. Other Vareth joined in, their voices rising into the glowing trees. Lily expected them to be angry at her. The wolf creatures had come because of her scent. Her presence had brought death to their home. But when she tried to apologize, Kethra stopped her. "Small ones are sacred," the old female said slowly, using simple words that Lily could understand. "This is known." She touched Lily's face gently. "You are our small one now." 47 days after the crash, Lily was helping Kethra weave a basket when they heard the sound. It was a low humming that grew louder and louder. The Vareth looked up at the sky with fear in their eyes. They had never heard anything like it, but Lily had. It was a ship. A rescue shuttle broke through the clouds and descended toward the village clearing. It was painted with the blue and white colors of Earth's search and rescue. The door opened, and human soldiers stepped out, wearing armor and carrying weapons. The Vareth did not run. They did not hide. Instead, they did something that would change history forever. They formed a line in front of Lily. 12 Vareth, including old Kethra, standing between the armored humans and the child they had protected. They raised their bone spears at the soldiers. The soldiers stopped. They had expected to find a body. They had expected predators or hostile creatures. They had not expected this. Tiny beings, less than half their size, ready to fight and die for a human child. Lily pushed through the line of Vareth. "Stop," she shouted. "Don't hurt them." She ran to the soldiers and spread her arms wide, standing between the two groups. "They're my family. They saved me. Please don't hurt them." The lead soldier removed his helmet. His face was full of shock and something else. Something like wonder. "We're not going to hurt anyone," he said softly. "We came to bring you home." Lily looked back at Kethra. The old female had lowered her spear. She was watching the soldier with careful eyes. "They come home too," Lily said. It was not a question. The soldier looked at the small gray beings who had raised their weapons against trained warriors for the sake of a child. He looked at Lily, healthy and strong and loved. He nodded slowly. "We'll figure something out." Behind him, a camera on the shuttle was recording everything. The footage would spread across the galaxy within hours, and nothing would ever be the same. The video spread like fire. Within hours of the rescue, every news station on Earth was playing the same footage. A tiny gray alien, old and frail, raising a bone spear against armored soldiers to protect a human child. The image burned itself into the minds of billions. People watched the video again and again. They watched the Varath form their protective line. They watched little Lily Chen run between the two groups, shouting for peace. They watched the moment when understanding passed between human and alien. The internet exploded with reactions. Some people cried. Some people shared the video hundreds of times. Artists began drawing pictures of Kethra and Lily. Musicians wrote songs about the tiny aliens who had done what no one else in the galaxy would do, but the most important reaction came from the people in power. Admiral James Okonkwo was the commander of Earth's United Fleet. He was a large man with gray hair and a face that rarely showed emotion. He had fought in 3 wars and led humanity's forces through some of the darkest moments in their history. When he watched the video, he wept. He had a daughter named Amara. She was 8 years old. Just 1 year older than Lily. Every time he looked at the footage of that small child surrounded by aliens who loved her, he saw Amara's face. He requested permission to travel to Vareth 7 personally. The request was approved within the hour. The shuttle landed in the same clearing where the rescue had happened. Admiral Okonkwo stepped out alone, wearing no armor and carrying no weapons. Lily Chen was waiting for him, holding Kethra's hand. Through a newly programmed translation device, the Admiral spoke to the Vareth elder. "I want to understand," he said. "Your people do not know us. You had never seen a human before. Why did you help this child?" Kethra tilted her head. The translator hummed as it worked. "She was small," Kethra answered. "She was alone. She was afraid. But you risked everything. Your people died protecting her." Kethra made a sound that the translator could not fully capture. It was something between a sigh and a song. "Small ones are sacred," she said. "This is known to all Vareth since the first days. We do not ask where a child comes from or what it looks like. A child alone is a child in need. This is simple." Admiral Okonkwo was quiet for a long moment. He looked at Lily, healthy and strong, wearing clothes made by Vareth hands. He looked at Kethra, small and old, who had raised a weapon against soldiers to keep the child safe. "You are good people," he finally said. His voice was thick with emotion. "Better than most we have met in this galaxy." He knelt down so he was at Kethra's level. A human admiral, one of the most powerful military leaders in the galaxy, kneeling before a being that other species called primitive. "I want to make you a promise," he said. "Earth does not forget kindness. We will find a way to repay what you have done." Kethra touched his face gently with one of her small hands. "Keep the small one safe," she said. "That is enough." But Admiral Okonkwo knew it was not enough. It would never be enough. Back on Earth, the Parliament building was filled to capacity. Representatives from every nation on the planet had gathered for an emergency session. The video of the rescue played on the massive screen behind the speaker's podium. Representative Maria Santos of Brazil stood at the microphone. Her voice shook with emotion as she spoke. "We have traveled the stars for 200 years, she said. "We have met hundreds of species. We have been called aggressive. We have been called dangerous. We have been told that we are too emotional, too violent, too unpredictable." She paused and looked at the faces of her fellow representatives. "And in all that time, when our child was lost on an alien world, only one species helped her. Not the wealthy empires. Not the advanced civilizations. Not the proud members of the Galactic Council. They told us to give up. They told us the child was dead." Her voice grew stronger. Da-da-da-da-da. But the Vareth did not give up. The Vareth, who have no ships and no weapons and no seat on any council, looked at a human child and saw something sacred. They fed her. They taught her. They died for her. She turned to face the camera that was broadcasting to the entire planet. "How can we call ourselves human if we do not answer such kindness? How can we look at our children and tell them that we let good people suffer?" The vote was held immediately. It was unanimous. The Declaration of Guardianship was written that night. The official document was long and filled with legal language, but the heart of it was simple. The Vareth of Vareth 7 were now under the protection of Earth and all humanity. Any attack on them would be treated as an attack on Earth itself. Any threat to their world would be met with the full force of human military power. Their enemies would become humanity's enemies when the declaration was sent to the Galactic Council, caused confusion among the other species. The Vareth had nothing to offer. No technology, no resources, no strategic importance. Why would humanity bind itself to such a primitive species? The human ambassador to the council was a woman named Dr. Eleanor Vance. She stood in the great chamber and faced the representatives of 1,000 worlds. "You want to know why?" she said. "I will tell you." She pulled up the image of Kethra standing in front of Lily with her bone spear raised. "Look at this picture. This is an old woman who has never traveled beyond her own forest. She has never seen a spaceship. She has never spoken to anyone outside her own species. And when armed soldiers came for the child she protected, she was ready to die fighting them." Dr. Vance let the image stay on the screen. She did not ask what Lily was worth. She did not calculate the risk and reward. She did not think about politics or trade agreements or military advantages. She saw a child who needed help, and she helped. Her voice grew cold and hard. "The Vareth showed us something we have been searching for since we left Earth. They showed us that goodness exists in this galaxy. Real goodness. Pure and simple and without conditions." She looked at each representative in turn. "That is why we will protect them. Because they were kind. And humanity does not forget kindness. We do not abandon those who stood for us when no one else would." She turned to leave, then stopped. "If any of you want to know what humanity values, look at that picture. Look at it and understand. We will burn down empires for the people who show kindness to our children. We will cross the galaxy and fight any enemy and sacrifice anything."
Ow.
She smiled. And it was not a warm smile. Remember that. The chamber was silent as she walked out. On Vareth 7, Kethra did not understand what had happened. She did not know about declarations or parliaments or galactic politics. She only knew that the humans had come back. They brought doctors to check on the village's health. They brought gifts of tools and medicine. They learned Vareth names and Vareth songs, and they stayed. Lily stood between two worlds, translating words and meanings. She was only 7 years old, but she had become the bridge between humanity and the species that had saved her. When she told Kethra that Earth had promised to protect the Vareth forever, the old female was quiet for a long time. "Forever is a long time," she finally said. Lily held her hand. "Humans keep their promises." Kethra looked at the small human child who had changed everything. "Yes," she said softly. "I believe they do." 8 years passed like water flowing downhill. Lily Chen grew from a frightened child into a strong young woman. She studied languages at the best universities on Earth. She learned diplomacy and history and the complex web of relationships between galactic species. But every summer, she returned to Vareth 7. Kethra was old now, even by Vareth standards. Her gray fur had turned almost white, and she moved more slowly than before. But her eyes still sparkled with intelligence, and her voice still commanded respect in the village. When Lily landed on Vareth 7 as an official liaison for Earth, Kethra was waiting at the landing pad. The old female had to look up now to see Lily's face. The small child she had saved was now a tall woman with her mother's eyes and her father's stubborn chin. "You came back," Kethra said through the translator. Lily knelt down and hugged her. "I always come back." The village had changed over the years. Human engineers had helped build better structures, stronger bridges, cleaner water systems. But they had done it carefully, always asking the Vareth elders for permission, always respecting their ways. The village was still made of wood and vines. It still glowed with bioluminescent light. It was still home. Earth had kept its promise. A small station orbited Vareth 7, staffed by humans who monitored the planet and provided assistance when needed. Medical teams visited regularly, Teachers came to share knowledge and learn from the Veroth in return. The galaxy had watched this relationship with curiosity. Many species did not understand it. The Veroth had nothing to offer humanity. No rare minerals. No advanced technology. No military strength. Why did the humans care so much? But others watched with different eyes. Smaller species, long bullied by larger empires, began to wonder what it would mean to have humanity as a friend. One empire watched with hunger. The Dominion of Kreth controlled 40 star systems. They were reptilian creatures, cold and calculating, who believed that strength was the only law. They had conquered dozens of worlds and crushed any resistance with brutal efficiency. Their scientists had discovered something interesting about Veroth 7. The soil contained rare minerals, useful for building weapons. Not enough to make the planet valuable by normal standards, but enough to justify taking it. The Dominion announced their intentions through official channels. Veroth 7 was now claimed as Dominion territory. The native species would be relocated to a suitable habitat elsewhere in the galaxy. Everyone knew what relocation meant. It meant death. The message reached Earth within hours. Lily was in a meeting with Veroth elders when her communication device buzzed with urgent alerts. She read the message 3 times before she believed it. "What is wrong?" Kethra asked. She could always read Lily's emotions. "Someone wants to take your world," Lily said quietly. "They want to move your people." Kethra was silent for a moment. Then she made a sound that Lily had never heard before. It was almost like laughter, but sadder. "Many have tried to take from us," the old female said. "The forest, the predators, the sky itself. We are still here." Lily took her hand. "You will not face this alone." On Earth, the response was immediate. Admiral Chen stood before the War Council. Yes, Admiral Chen. Lily's father had risen through the ranks over the past 8 years. He had never stopped feeling the debt he owed to the beings who had saved his daughter. "The Dominion fleet consists of approximately 200 warships," he reported. "They have crushed every opponent they have faced. They expect no serious resistance." The council members murmured among themselves. "What do you recommend?" The president asked. Admiral Chen's face was stone. "We show them what happens when they threaten people under our protection." The mobilization was the largest in human history. Ships were called back from distant stations. Reserves were activated. Soldiers volunteered in numbers that overwhelmed the recruitment offices. Within 2 weeks, 400 human warships gathered at a staging point near Veroth 7. 50,000 Marines prepared for ground combat. The fleet was larger than anything humanity had ever assembled. The flagship was a massive vessel bristling with weapons. Its name, chosen by unanimous vote of Earth Parliament, was the Kethra Spear. When the Dominion fleet arrived at Veroth 7, they found the human armada waiting for them. The Dominion admiral, a scarred reptile named Krathvok, was not impressed. He had heard stories about human aggression, but he had also heard that humans were soft, emotional, weak. Admiral Chen's message was broadcast on all frequencies. "This world and its people are under our protection. Leave now, or we will demonstrate exactly why the galaxy calls humanity the species that does not know when to quit." "You have 1 hour," Krathvok laughed when he received the message. He ordered his fleet to advance. 1 hour later, the Battle of Veroth 7 began. The Dominion expected the humans to fight like other species. Organized, predictable, careful. They were wrong. Human ships dove into the Dominion formation. With reckless courage, small fighter craft flew suicide runs against larger vessels, buying time for heavy cruisers to maneuver. Marines boarded enemy ships through breached hulls, fighting hand-to-hand in the burning corridors. The Dominion had superior numbers and experience. But the humans had something else. They had rage. They had purpose. They had the faces of Veroth children in their minds. 6 hours after the battle began, the Dominion fleet was broken. 142 Dominion ships floated dead in space. Human losses were 38 vessels. When the Dominion flagship tried to retreat, Human ships pursued it for 3 days across empty space until it finally surrendered. Admiral Krathvok was brought before Admiral Chen in chains. The reptile's eyes were filled with something he had never felt before: fear. "You lost 100 ships for primitives," Krathvok said. "For creatures who cannot even build machines? Why?" Admiral Chen looked at him for a long moment. "Because they protected my daughter," he said quietly. "And we always pay our debts." On Vareth 7, the villagers watched the battle from the ground. They saw the lights flashing in the sky. They heard the distant thunder of weapons. They did not fully understand what was happening. They understood one thing: the humans were fighting for them. When the battle ended, Lily stood with Kethra on the highest platform in the village. The sky was dark except for the stars and the distant glow of the human fleet holding position above them. "The cave," Kethra said softly. "All those ships, all those warriors. For us?" Lily nodded. "I told you. Humans keep their promises." Kethra was quiet for a long time. When she spoke again, her voice was thick with emotion. "When I found you, small and scared in your broken vessel, I did not think about the future. I did not think about what you might become or what your people might do. I only thought that you were a child alone. And that was wrong." She looked up at the sky full of human ships. "I did not know I was saving the future of my people." Lily knelt beside her, just as she had when she was 7 years old. "You did not save us to get something back," Lily said. "That is why we came. Because your kindness was pure. And pure kindness is the rarest thing in this galaxy." Kethra touched Lily's face with her small hand. "Perhaps," she said, "or perhaps kindness calls to kindness. Perhaps that is the law of the universe that we are only now beginning to learn." Above them, the fleet held its position. They would stay for as long as they were needed. They would stay forever if they had to, because humanity had made a promise. And humanity kept its promises. The Battle of Vareth 7 changed everything. News of the Dominion's defeat spread across the galaxy like ripples in a pond. 100 species watched the footage of human ships tearing through the Dominion fleet. They saw the ferocity. They saw the sacrifice. They saw 400 warships gathered to protect a species with no military value and no strategic importance. The Dominion of Kreth signed a peace treaty within weeks. They gave up territory. They paid reparations. They promised never to threaten Vareth 7 again. Admiral Krathvok was stripped of his rank and sent to a prison world on the edge of known space. But the true impact was felt in quieter places. Small species began reaching out to Earth. They sent careful messages through secret channels. They asked if the humans might be interested in friendship. They wanted to know if the Declaration of Guardianship could apply to them too. The Galactic Council debated endlessly about what humanity's actions meant. Some members were frightened. If humans would fight like that for primitives, what would they do for actual allies? Others were curious. Perhaps they had been wrong about these emotional, unpredictable creatures. Dr. Eleanor Vance, still serving as human ambassador, answered their questions with a simple statement: "We are loyal to those who are loyal to us. We protect those who show us kindness. We do not abandon friends." She paused and looked around the chamber. "If that frightens you, perhaps you should ask yourself why." The years that followed were good ones for Vrath-7. Human engineers worked with Vrath builders to create better homes that still honored its traditional designs. Human doctors taught Vareth healers about medicines and treatments, while learning about native remedies in return. Human teachers opened schools where Vareth children could learn about the galaxy, and where human children could learn about Vareth philosophy. Young Vareth traveled to human universities to study. They returned home with knowledge of science and engineering and art, but they also brought back something else. They brought back stories of how humans lived, how they loved, how they raised their children in exchange. Human scholars traveled to Vareth 7 to study the native way of life. They were fascinated by Vareth's spirituality, by their connection to the forest, by their simple wisdom about what truly mattered. The phrase "small ones are sacred" began appearing in human philosophy texts. Parents whispered it to their children. Lily Chen served as ambassador for 30 years. She watched Vareth children grow up and have children of their own. She saw Human and Verith playing together, learning together, becoming something new together. She married a human diplomat named Marcus Webb. They raised 2 daughters, Emma and Rose, who spent half their childhood on Earth, half on Verith 7. The girls learned to climb trees before they learned to ride bicycles. They spoke Verith almost as well as they spoke English. Kethra became like a grandmother to them. She taught them to weave baskets and find safe paths through the forest. She told them stories about the old days, about the time a small human child fell from the sky and changed everything. When Emma turned 7, the same age Lily had been during the crash, Kethra gave her a gift. It was a small stone carved with Verith symbols. The symbols meant sacred small one. Your mother was once alone and afraid, Kethra told Emma. But she was never truly alone. The forest protected her. We protected her. And now, you carry that protection with you wherever you go. Wore the stone around her neck for the rest of her life, the day that Kethra died. The whole galaxy seemed to pause. She passed peacefully in her sleep at the age of 90, ancient by Verath standards. She had lived long enough to see her people go from forgotten primitives to honored friends of humanity. She had seen the village she loved grow and change, while staying true to itself. The funeral was unlike anything the galaxy had ever witnessed. The president of Earth came personally. 3 fleet admirals stood in the crowd. Representatives from 40 different species made the journey to Verith 7 to pay their respects. The human fleet in orbit fired a salute that lit up the sky. But the most important mourners were the Verith themselves. They sang the old songs, the ones that had been passed down for thousands of years. They wrapped Kethra's body in leaves and lowered it to the forest floor, just as they had always done. Lily spoke through her tears. 43 years ago. I was a scared child who fell from the sky, she said. I was alone on a world that wanted to eat me. I should have died, but I did not die, because a small gray woman with kind eyes decided that I was sacred. She looked at the gathered crowd. Human and Verith and alien faces all watching her. Kethra never asked for payment. She never wanted glory or wealth or power. She simply saw a child who needed help, and she helped. That was who she was. That was her gift to all of us. Lily's voice broke, but she continued. Because of her, my people learned that goodness exists in this galaxy. We learned that kindness can be pure and simple and without conditions. We learned what it means to truly protect someone. She placed her hand on the ground where Kethra now rested. We will not forget. We will never forget. A monument was built in Geneva, on Earth, beside the old United Nations building. It showed a Verith and a human child, hand in hand, looking up at the stars. The inscription at the base was simple. It protected one of ours. We will protect all of theirs. This is humanity's promise, kept forever. In the decades that followed, the phrase Verith Protocol entered galactic vocabulary. It described what happened when someone showed kindness to humanity. Political analysts tried to explain it as strategy, as clever manipulation. They were wrong. It was simply how humans worked. Kindness given was never forgotten. And when humanity decided someone was worthy of protection, nothing in the galaxy could change their minds. Other species began to understand this. Some tried to manipulate it, offering false kindness to gain human favor. They learned quickly that humans could tell the difference. Real kindness was given without expectation of return. It was given because it was right, but many species simply absorbed the lesson and changed their behavior. They began treating smaller species better. They began thinking about children and the vulnerable in new ways. The phrase "small ones are sacred" appeared in diplomatic documents and official policies across the galaxy. The universe was changing, not through war or conquest, but through an idea. An idea that had started with an old woman and a scared child in a glowing forest. 50 years after the crash of the Meridian's Hope, Lily Chen sat on the highest platform in the village. She was old now, her hair white and her movements slow. But her eyes still sparkled with life. Her granddaughter sat beside her. A little girl named Kethra, named for the woman who had started it all. Tell me the story again, little Kethra said. Tell me about when you fell from the sky. Lily smiled and pulled the child close. Once upon a time, she began, a little girl was very scared and very alone. She thought no one would help her. She thought she would die in the dark forest. But someone helped her, little Kethra said. Yes, someone very special. Someone who saw a child in need and decided that was enough reason to give everything. Lily looked up at the stars, where human ships still kept their eternal watch. And because of that kindness, everything changed. The galaxy learned that goodness matters, that protecting the small and the scared is the most important thing anyone can do. She kissed her granddaughter's forehead, and that is why we are still here, telling this story. Because kindness given is never forgotten, and we humans always pay our debts. Above them, the stars blazed with light. Somewhere out there, other species were learning the same lesson. Other children were being protected. Other acts of kindness were rippling outward through the darkness. The universe was vast and cold and dangerous, but it was also full of possibility. And that possibility had a name. It was called kindness, and it was sacred.